Nobody intervened as he screamed threats inches from her trembling face, trapping the grandmother against the booth while customers watched in frozen horror. Then a voice sliced through the chaos. "Touch her and you're done." The thug turned pale because standing in that doorway was the one person he feared most. And the arrest that followed? Just the beginning of something way darker. Before we proceed, drop your locations in the comments right now, and when this story ends, rate it from 0 to 10. Set? Let's dive in. The morning sun rose over Brookside, Georgia, like a whispered promise, painting the sky in soft shades of peach and gold. Church bells rang faintly from the Baptist chapel on Elm Street, their melody drifting through quiet neighborhoods where porch lights blinked off one by one. The air carried the scent of fresh biscuits and brewing coffee, drawing early risers toward the heart of town. At 81 years old, Natalie Richardson moved through her morning routine with the grace of someone who had learned to savor life's simple pleasures. Her silver curls were pinned neatly beneath a pale blue clip, and her floral dress, lavender with tiny white daisies, swayed gently as she walked. Kind eyes, framed by delicate laugh lines, took in the familiar sights of Main Street with quiet contentment. The Red Wagon Diner had been her sanctuary for over 3 decades. Its chrome-trimmed windows gleamed in the morning light, and inside the atmosphere hummed with comfortable energy. Plates clinked against the counter. Coffee cups steamed. Regular customers exchanged warm greetings and gentle laughter. "Morning. Miss Natalie?" called Rita, the waitress who had served her for 15 years. "Good morning, dear," Natalie replied, settling into her favorite red leather booth near the window. Within moments, her usual order arrived: crispy fried chicken, buttermilk biscuits, and a steaming mug of cocoa. At a nearby table, 2 construction workers spoke in low voices about strange activity around Frank Calder's salvage yard. "Trucks coming and going at odd hours," one muttered. "Seems suspicious to me." Another customer mentioned vandalism behind the community center, spray paint and broken glass scattered near the dumpsters. Natalie listened absently, buttering her biscuit. "I walked past that salvage yard just the other day," she mentioned to Rita, "delivering leftover cakes from the church event. Didn't see much, though, just men loading trucks." Rita nodded, refilling her cocoa. Outside, the town continued its gentle rhythm. Inside, warmth and safety wrapped around Natalie like a familiar blanket. Then the diner door suddenly slammed open. The glass rattled violently. Coffee cups shook in their saucers. Every head turned toward the entrance, and the morning's peace shattered like broken glass. Noah Tyler stormed across the threshold like a hurricane given human form. He was barely in his mid-20s, but rage had carved hard lines into his face. His unkempt beard was patchy and wild, his denim jacket wrinkled and stained. Bloodshot eyes darted across the room, scanning faces until they locked onto their target: Natalie. The entire diner seemed to hold its breath. A waitress near the counter gasped audibly, her hand flying to her mouth. A man in a plaid shirt froze mid-bite, his fork suspended in the air. At a corner booth, a teenage boy fumbled his phone, nearly dropping it onto the tile floor. "You!" Noah's voice cracked through the silence like a whip. He pointed a shaking finger directly at Natalie. "You think you can just snitch on people and get away with it?" Natalie's cocoa cup trembled in her grip. She set it down carefully, her voice soft but steady. "Young man, I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me!" Noah shouted, advancing toward her booth. His boots thudded against the floor with each furious step. "You told the cops about the community center. You got me in trouble." "I didn't," Natalie began, but Noah wasn't listening. He swept past a table, his arm knocking a salt shaker and napkin dispenser to the floor with a crash. Customers flinched. A woman clutching a milkshake pulled her young daughter closer, her knuckles white against the glass. Rita, the waitress, took a half step forward, then froze. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Terror had stolen her voice. Noah reached Natalie's booth and planted both hands on the table, trapping her against the window. His face was inches from hers now, close enough that she could smell the cigarette smoke on his breath. "You think you're some kind of hero?" he hissed, spittle flying. "Old ladies like you need to learn to mind your own business." Natalie pressed herself back against the booth, her heart hammering against her ribs. Around them, the diner remained paralyzed, a tableau of fear. No one moved, no one spoke. Noah's hands balled into fists. His right arm began to rise. The diner door beeped. And everything changed. Sergeant Jeremy Richardson filled the doorway like a force of nature. In his early 30s, he carried himself with the controlled power of someone trained to handle chaos. His uniform was crisp, his shoulders broad, and his expression carved from stone. But it was his eyes, sharp, unwavering, and burning with protective fury, that commanded the room. Beside him, shadow emerged from the morning light. The German shepherd's ears stood erect, his dark eyes locked onto Noah with predatory focus. A low, rumbling growl emanated from deep within his chest. "Noah Tyler!" Jeremy's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Step away from my mother." The words hit Noah like a physical blow. His raised fist faltered, his face drained of color. They told me she snitched. This ain't my fault." I said, "Step away." Jeremy advanced with measured steps, each one deliberate and commanding. Shadow moved in perfect synchronization, muscles coiled beneath his sleek coat. Noah stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet. "You don't understand, man. I was just—" "Now!" Shadow's growl intensified, and the dog positioned himself between Natalie and the threat. His stance was textbook perfect, protective, intimidating, ready to act if necessary. Noah's eyes darted between the officer and the K-9, panic replacing his earlier rage. He bolted, or tried to. Jeremy moved with the precision of years of tactical training. Within 2 strides, he had closed the distance. His hand clamped onto Noah's shoulder, spinning him around. Before Noah could resist, Jeremy had him face first against the nearest table, cuffs clicking into place with practiced efficiency. "You're under arrest, threatening behavior and disturbing the peace," Jeremy stated, his voice cold and professional. The diner erupted. Customers gasped, then began clapping. Someone shouted, "Thank God!" Rita, the waitress, pressed both hands to her face as relieved tears streamed down her cheeks. Jeremy escorted Noah toward the door, but paused first. He turned to his mother, his expression softening for just a moment. "Mom, are you hurt?" Natalie shook her head, her hands still trembling. "No, sweetheart. I'm all right." "I'll be right back." Jeremy's jaw tightened as he pushed Noah through the exit toward the patrol vehicle waiting outside. Shadow remained behind for a moment longer. The powerful dog approached Natalie's booth and gently nudged her hand with his nose, warm, reassuring, protective. Natalie stroked his head, finding comfort in his steady presence. But neither of them knew this was only the beginning of something far darker. Within 20 minutes, the world knew what had happened at the Red Wagon Diner. 3 customers had captured the confrontation on their phones. The first video, shaky but clear, showed Noah's aggressive advance toward Natalie. The second caught his shouting accusations and the terrified faces of onlookers. The third captured Jeremy's commanding entrance and Noah's swift takedown. By noon, all 3 videos had been uploaded to Brookside's community Facebook page. By 1 o'clock, they had spread to regional news groups across Georgia. By 2, they had gone viral. The comment sections exploded with outrage. "That poor woman. Thank God her son was there. Lock that thug up and throw away the key." Thousands shared the videos, tagging local news stations and law enforcement pages. Natalie's gentle face and trembling hands became a rallying cry for justice. At the Brookside Police Department, Jeremy's phone buzzed incessantly. Fellow officers from neighboring counties sent messages. "Saw the video, brother. You okay? That's your mom? Glad you got there in time. This thing is everywhere." Jeremy stood in the processing room, watching Noah slump in a metal chair, handcuffed and defeated. A deputy approached, holding Noah's confiscated phone in an evidence bag. "Sergeant, you need to see this." Jeremy pulled on latex gloves and scrolled through the unlocked device. His jaw tightened with each message he read. Unknown number. "Shut her up before she talks." Unknown number. "She saw too much. Handle it." Unknown number. "Don't let the cops find out what we're moving." Jeremy's pulse quickened. This wasn't random rage. This was calculated intimidation. Down the hall, Natalie sat in a quiet interview room, a blanket draped over her shoulders and a cup of tea cooling on the table before her. A female detective asked gentle questions. "Mrs. Richardson, did you report anything to the police recently? Any suspicious activity?" Natalie shook her head, bewildered. "No, dear. I haven't reported anything. I don't understand why that young man thought I did." "Did you see anything unusual in the past week? Anywhere in town?" Natalie paused, thinking. "Well, I walked past Frank Calder's salvage yard on Tuesday, delivering cakes from church. There were men loading a truck, but I didn't think much of it." The detective exchanged a meaningful glance with her partner. Back in the processing room, Jeremy continued scrolling through Noah's phone. His thumb stopped on the photo gallery. His eyes widened. Dozens of images filled the screen. Automotive parts stacked in warehouses, VIN numbers visible on engines, license plates from out-of-state vehicles, stolen goods. Jeremy's grip tightened on the phone. This was bigger than an assault. Much bigger. Frank Calder's name had been whispered around Brookside for years, but always carefully, always quietly. The salvage yard owner was a broad-shouldered man in his late 50s with a perpetual scowl and a reputation for keeping to himself. His business sprawled across 5 acres on the edge of town. Rusted fences, stacked car frames, and a main building where few were ever invited inside. Most people assumed he was simply unfriendly. Jeremy now suspected he was something far worse. In the station's interrogation room, Noah sat hunched over the table, his earlier bravado completely shattered. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His leg bounced nervously beneath the table. "Noah," Jeremy said, his voice measured but firm. "Those messages on your phone, the photos, who sent them?" Noah's jaw worked silently for a moment, then quietly, "Frank Calder." The name hung in the air like smoke. "Why did he want you to threaten my mother?" Noah's hands trembled. He said she saw something, that she was walking past the loading dock Tuesday morning when his guys were moving merchandise. He freaked out, thought she'd report it." Jeremy leaned forward. "What merchandise?" "Stolen parts." Noah's voice cracked. "Engines, transmissions, whole cars sometimes. They come in from out of state, get chopped down, and sold to shops that don't ask questions. It's been going on for months, maybe longer." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Natalie hadn't reported anything because she hadn't seen anything suspicious. She'd simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, carrying a box of leftover church cakes past a criminal operation. And that innocent moment had made her a target. Over the next 48 hours, Jeremy's investigation exploded outward. Deputies interviewed former employees of Calder's salvage yard. They discovered tampered vehicle titles, forged documentation, and shell companies used to launder money. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses showed suspicious trucks arriving after midnight, their cargo concealed beneath tarps. Frank Calder had built an empire on stolen goods, using vulnerable young men like Noah as enforcers, manipulating them with money, threats, or both. Jeremy stood in the department's conference room, photographs and evidence spread across the table like puzzle pieces finally forming a complete picture. His captain stood beside him, arms crossed, expression grim. "This goes deeper than we thought," the captain said. Jeremy's jaw tightened. He thought of his mother's terrified face, Noah's raised fist, the moment that could have ended so much worse. "She won't be intimidated ever again," Jeremy said, his voice cold with resolve. "I'm going after Calder." And he meant every word. Brookside had always been a close-knit community, but in the days following the assault, that bond transformed into something fiercer, a collective shield around one of their own. The Red Wagon Diner refused to let Natalie pay for another meal. Flowers appeared on her usual table every morning, daisies, roses, sunflowers wrapped in ribbon. Handwritten cards poured in from neighbors, church members, and complete strangers. "You're the heart of this town, Miss Natalie. Thank you for your courage. We stand with you." Rita, the waitress, kept a growing stack of well wishes behind the counter, her eyes misting every time another arrived. Beyond words of support, Brookside took action. Residents organized neighborhood watch groups, reporting suspicious activity around the salvage yard. Tips flooded the police department's hotline, late-night truck movements, unfamiliar license plates, men acting nervously near Calder's property. Natalie herself became an unlikely symbol. People stopped her on the street to shake her hand, to thank her for standing strong, though she insisted she'd done nothing heroic. "I was just having breakfast, dear," she'd say softly. But the town saw something different. A grandmother who'd faced down a threat and sparked a reckoning. Jeremy worked relentlessly. His days blurred into a relentless cycle of raids, interviews, and evidence collection. Shadow became indispensable. The German shepherd's nose led them to a hidden storage shed behind the salvage yard, concealed beneath overgrown brush and rusted sheet metal. Inside, they found crates of stolen engines, Vienne plates, and forged documentation stretching back 18 months. Each discovery tightened the noose around Calder's operation. But Calder wasn't surrendering quietly. Paranoia consumed him. He sent 2 of his men to watch Natalie's modest house on Magnolia Street, a clumsy surveillance attempt that lasted less than 4 hours before plainclothes officers arrested them both. The incident only fueled public outrage. By the end of the week, the story had exploded beyond Brookside's borders. The assault video played on Atlanta news stations. Regional papers ran front-page features. Small-town grandmother becomes face of fight against organized crime. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation reached out to Jeremy directly, offering resources and personnel for the expanding case. Calder watched it all unfold from the shadows of his salvage yard office. His hands shook as he scrolled through news articles on his laptop. Every headline felt like a noose tightening around his neck. He'd built this operation carefully over years, keeping it small, keeping it quiet, staying beneath the radar. One elderly woman walking past at the wrong moment had brought it all crashing down. Frank Calder made a decision. He opened his desk drawer, pulled out a burner phone, and dialed a number he'd hoped never to use. "I need to disappear," he said quietly. "Tonight." Frank Calder's truck rumbled through the darkness, headlights cutting narrow paths through Georgia backroads. It was just past midnight when he abandoned Brookside, leaving behind years of carefully constructed lies and a crumbling criminal empire. He told himself he'd planned for this, that he had contingencies, escape routes. But fear had a way of unraveling even the best-laid plans. At the Brookside Police Department, Jeremy's phone buzzed at 12:47 a.m. A trucker calling from a rest stop 40 miles west had spotted Calder's distinctive blue Ford pickup near an abandoned truck stop off Highway 78, a desolate stretch known for its shuttered gas station and decaying storage trailers. Jeremy was in his patrol vehicle within minutes, shadow alert in the back seat. 2 deputy cruisers followed close behind, their lights dark to avoid detection. The moon hung high and silver, casting long shadows across empty fields as they approached the location. Jeremy killed his headlights 200 yards out, coasting to a silent stop behind a cluster of pine trees. Shadow's ears pricked forward. The dog sensed something. "Find him, boy," Jeremy whispered, releasing the canine from the vehicle. Shadow moved like Liquid Shadow himself, nose to the ground, weaving through rusted oil drums and collapsed fencing. Jeremy and the deputies followed, weapons drawn, breath visible in the cold night air. The abandoned truck stop loomed ahead, broken windows, peeling paint, weeds reclaiming cracked asphalt. Calder's truck sat parked behind a stack of scrap trailers, engine still ticking as it cooled. Shadow stopped abruptly, muscles tensing. A low growl rumbled from his throat. Movement. Calder burst from behind a trailer, sprinting toward the tree line. But he'd underestimated the canine's speed. Shadow launched forward, closing the distance in seconds. The dog's bark shattered the night's silence, sharp, commanding, territorial. Calder stumbled, falling hard onto gravel. He scrambled backward, hands raised. "Call him off! Call him off!" Jeremy emerged from the darkness, flashlight beam pinning Calder in place. "Frank Calder, you're under arrest for organized theft, racketeering, conspiracy, and witness intimidation." Shadow held position, teeth bared, eyes locked on the target. Calder's shoulders sagged in defeat as Jeremy snapped handcuffs onto his wrists. State trooper vehicles rolled in moments later, their blue lights washing the scene in rhythmic color. Deputies searched Calder's truck. Inside, they found duffel bags stuffed with cash, receipts documenting years of illegal transactions, 3 burner phones, and a lockbox containing VIN plates from dozens of stolen vehicles. Jeremy pulled his radio from his belt, his voice steady and final. "Dispatch, this is Richardson. Calder's in custody." The hunt was over. The Brookside Community Center had never held so many people. Every seat was filled, folding chairs lined the walls, and residents stood shoulder to shoulder in the back. The air hummed with anxious energy, relief mixed with lingering fear, questions demanding answers. Mayor Collins stood at the podium, his voice steady but grave. "We've gathered tonight to address what happened, to reassure you that justice is being served, and to honor the strength of one of our own." Natalie sat in the front row, hands folded in her lap. Her floral dress was pressed, her silver hair neatly pinned, but her eyes carried the weight of everything she'd endured. Town leaders flanked her, the police chief, council members, Rita from the diner. Then the side door opened. Noah Tyler shuffled in, escorted by 2 deputies. Handcuffs gleamed at his wrists. His head hung low, beard unkempt, eyes red-rimmed from sleepless nights. The crowd murmured, some angry, some curious. He stopped before the microphone, trembling visibly. His voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. "I need to say something." The room fell silent. "Frank Calder recruited me when I was 19. I was broke, angry, and didn't see any other way forward. He gave me money, told me I was useful, made me feel like I mattered." Noah's hands shook inside the cuffs. "But he also threatened me, said if I walked away, I'd regret it. So I stayed." Tears began streaming down his face. "He told me Miss Natalie had seen something, that she was going to snitch and ruin everything. I believed him because I was too scared not to. So I went to that diner and I—" His voice broke completely. "I almost hurt the one person in this town who never wronged me, the kindest woman in Brookside." He turned toward Natalie, his shoulders heaving with sobs. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Miss Natalie. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging for it anyway." The room held its breath. Natalie rose slowly, her small frame somehow commanding the entire space. She approached Noah, and though deputies tensed, she simply reached out and placed a gentle hand on his arm. I forgive you, Noah, she said softly. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. You have to do better now. You have to choose better. Noah nodded frantically, unable to speak through his tears. The deputies guided him toward the exit. As the door closed behind him, the room erupted, not in anger, but in applause. For Natalie. For her grace. For her unshakable courage in the face of darkness. She returned to her seat, and Brookside rose around her. In the weeks that followed, Frank Calder's criminal empire collapsed like a house built on sand. His arrest triggered a cascade of consequences. 12 additional arrests across 3 counties, seized assets totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the recovery of over 40 stolen vehicles. The salvage yard was shuttered, its gates chained and marked with police tape. Brookside made headlines again, but this time for something hopeful. Brookside's strongest heart, elderly grandmother Sparks. Takedown of theft ring, read the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Reporters interviewed Natalie on her front porch, cameras capturing her gentle smile and humble deflections. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Dear, she insisted. My son and his partner did the real work. But the town knew better. At a special ceremony in front of City Hall, Sergeant Jeremy Richardson received the Medal of Valor. Shadow stood beside him, tail wagging proudly as the mayor draped a specially crafted K-9 service medal around his thick neck. The crowd cheered, children waved flags, and Jeremy's fellow officers clapped him on the back with genuine respect. Jeremy looked out at the faces gathered before him, neighbors, friends, his mother standing in the front row with tears of pride in her eyes. This wasn't just about catching criminals, he said into the microphone. It was about protecting what matters most: family, community, safety. And I'd do it again without hesitation. Life in Brookside gradually found its rhythm again. The Red Wagon Diner buzzed with its familiar morning energy. When Natalie walked through the door on her first day back, the entire restaurant erupted in applause. Rita rushed forward with a fresh pot of cocoa, tears streaming down her cheeks. Your usual table's waiting, Miss Natalie, she said warmly. Natalie settled into her beloved red leather booth, the morning sun streaming through the window just as it always had. Her plate of chicken and biscuits arrived moments later, steam rising in delicate curls. Shadow lay curled at her feet, his watchful eyes scanning the room even in rest. Jeremy sat across from her, uniform crisp, a rare smile softening his features. You doing okay, Mom? He asked. Natalie looked around the diner, at the familiar faces, the comforting sounds, the sense of safety that had been shaken but never broken. She lifted her mug of cocoa, inhaling its sweet warmth, and gazed out the window at Brookside's quiet streets, bathed in golden morning light. Peace again, she whispered softly, just as it should be. Did this story captivate you? Share your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments and tell us what you think. Smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you will never miss our next story.